this video, I'm going to get into one of the skills that I practice pretty frequently, and that is the ability to move from one position to the next, where it almost appears to the person you're dealing with that you're moving at supernatural speed. In the past, others have described this feeling as, teleporting or whatever. I like that, by the way. And because that's how it feels when it happens to you. And this is something that for those who had the chance to work with Grandmaster Perkins enough, you actually got to experience him doing this on you. And if you paid attention to what he was doing, you started realizing that everything he was doing originated from his legs, and he was dropping into everything. And it's really a cool skill to learn, but you got to put the work in. If you want to get good at it, you got to practice it. So when we're talking about teleporting or moving from one position to another, what you're really doing is you're developing the timing and coordination in your body so that in the middle of a situation, should you have to change direction for whatever reason, because the bad guy gets a vote in a fight, you learn to move in a way where you're kind of anticipating the possibility that you may have to change your body position. Now, I know there are people in the self-defense arena who say, you can't do certain things, that everything's at the gross movement level, but that's wrong. And the reason it's wrong is because if what they're saying is true, then how does anyone play a sport where they're moving at full speed and change direction? Because whether you're under duress or not, full speed is full speed, whatever that is. And your cerebellum, which controls movement, functions the same way. So these people don't know what they're talking about. I'm just being honest. And what they're really talking about is they don't train themselves to move under arousal to be able to control the overcommitment in their movement. That's really why they can't do it. And they've already convinced themselves that you can't move with fine motor coordination in a real situation. But the reason that they can is because they don't practice it. I mean, sorry, but if you don't practice it, no kidding, you can't do it. So all I'm saying is don't close your mind off to what is possible. Use your own judgment, practice for yourself, and then check it out for yourself, because that's what I'm talking about. So when I'm changing position from one position to the next, and people have felt me do this on them, what I'm really doing is, as I perceive that maybe something I'm doing is not going to work, or in the process of moving, maybe I feel something is more advantageous, I move my body to that position. The problem with that is, when you're engaged with another person, they can feel what you're doing, even if they don't subconsciously recognize it or consciously recognize it, as I was. They can still feel what you're doing. So you want to move in a way that feels like you disappeared on them. So Grandmaster Perkins used to do this all the time, where he would disappear on people. And the best way to do this is using the drop. So I've demonstrated in other videos how I use the drop, where you stand in a certain position and you learn how to drop and catch yourself. The reason that's important is because it allows you to go from a position here, say, whatever I'm doing, say I'm dealing with somebody here, or I'm dealing with their hands, but I want to get here. The problem is, if I do all this other movement, then it's harder to do. But if I know how to drop to a new position, I can quickly get myself to another position, catch my balance, and then load the spring and come right back on them. So it takes practice. I'm not saying it's an easy skill, but it's a doable skill, and the average person within their body can learn how to do this. Before I continue on, as I've said in previous videos, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and if you'd be so kind, hit the like button, because it really builds the channel, because we're trying to build this community. So anyway, so how you practice it is, first, you get the basic dropping down, and once you've gotten the basic dropping down, where you've learned how to drop and catch yourself, then you start dropping to different positions. But what you're trying to do, just like what I showed in the non-telegraphic striking video, from this position, let's say I chopped here, and I want to go and say hit some guy over here. What I don't want to do is wind up and then do that. I want to immediately drop into that position from where I am. This is why you got to practice this. So from here, I'm here, but then from here, I'm here, and then from here, maybe I'm here. And I know it looks kind of kung fu-y, and I like kung fu too. But the point is, what I'm doing is I'm pushing from one root point to the next, to whatever I got to do, positioning myself so that I can be here, and then all of a sudden I can disappear, and in the blink of an eye, relative to what they're experiencing, I can put myself in another position. In the next part of this, I'm going to show on the bag how I do this. Okay, so I got the bag here, the magical mystery bag, and what I'm going to demonstrate is just a basic way of how you can practice this. I practice this, by the way, the same way that I'm showing you here. So understand, there's nothing I do that I teach to people that I don't do myself. I mean, it's like bench press, You can do any kind of workout you saw in a muscle magazine or something, but the reality is there's only certain ways to do bench press right and everything else is wrong. So here we go. So let's say, for example, I want to do a chop to the head or the throat, whatever. I'm going to use my magic X here because everything is magical here. And what I want to do is I want to drop and hit. So what I'm going to do is pushing from the root, I'm going to drop into the forward, just like I'll do a normal jump, I'm going to hit. Now let's say now I want to go here and do a hammer fist, but I don't want too much movement. So as I'm hitting here, I'm going to drop again and I'm going to hit. Notice as I drop again, my body just drops down and I just hit and I'm just holding it with my feet landing as I'm striking. If I'm doing something else, let's say I'm hitting here, but I want to now hit here. So I drop and I drop. You actually see this in sport fighting where people are doing this and they're changing position. The hard part is not the speed. The speed will come. The hard part is getting the timing between from when I'm penetrating to when I'm striking and then controlling unnecessary excessive movement or unnecessary preparatory movement to go to a different position. Now, when you're going fast, it doesn't look like that. It just looks like you're just hitting and going back and forth or whatever you're doing. But in the body, you could actually feel yourself doing this. And because you're hitting with force, or you should be hitting with force, especially if you practice in a bag, what you should be feeling is the penetration and timing from one strike to the next. And as I'm doing this, notice it looks kind of, karate-like or staccato-like. That's because I'm not so much focusing on just the hitting. I'm focusing on the control of the body from one position to the next position, 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 whatever that's going to be. And I'm trying to get that coordination and timing down. Eventually, as you get the coordination and timing down, you start learning how to anticipate yourself dropping into whatever foot you're going to drop into, pushing from that root point to the next root point, hitting with power. As you get better, the time frame between one strike and the next starts to narrow. So to a person experiencing it, it just feels like, when you work with Grandmaster Karen, it always felt like, you're in a cement mixer with a bunch of sledgehammers getting hit from every direction. That's kind of how it feels to the person getting hit. That's the effect you want to have. And then, of course, as you're hitting, you want to make sure that you're controlling over travel. And sometimes, you may be doing it, maybe you miss. But because you have that ability to catch yourself, what happens is at least you don't overcommit in your movement to where you're in a position, hopefully, where you're not almost falling on the ground. And it's just something to practice. It's not a hard thing to do once you get the timing, but I found in my own experience, the hardest part is really having the patience in the beginning of hitting, gathering yourself and feeling on an internal level where you start feeling your muscles getting ready to move to the next position. It's that thing that I call, kind of the thing you do before you do the thing you're going to do, or anticipatory movement. In other words, from striking from here, now I want to do this motion. Well, I know these muscles are now pushing from this leg, are going to start that motion. I can actually feel that internally. And that's what I want to feel. I want to be able to feel that because now I know I'm ready to spring to the next position and so on and so forth. And, when you're doing it, have fun with it and make up different strikes, make up different combinations. Sometimes maybe I practice going here and bring the leg up and I hit here so they don't run because I want to bring the knee up. Whatever you're going to do. But you got to practice this stuff. And if you practice it, you're going to find that in a very short period of time, it's actually something that is very doable. It doesn't mean you don't do other things. It doesn't mean I don't, grab somebody, like if I'm here, catching somebody around the head and doing it. It just means that I'm developing a method where I'm moving with greater control over my body.